Welcome to Shameless Leadership. I'm your host, Sarah Dean. This show is for women leaders who are committed to advancing both their own leadership and the leadership of those around them. In each episode, I offer practical strategies and inspiring stories to help you become a more confident, compassionate, and curious leader. The truth is, you were born to lead. So let's start now, together. Hello, Shameless Leaders. Today, we're talking about consistency as your leadership superpower. And some of you probably saw this title and you were like, that just sounds boring. And you maybe didn't even want to listen. I'm glad that you're here. Keep listening, because while consistency can be real boring, real not sexy, it is also 100% your secret sauce to success and also a leadership superpower. I know this because of the ways that I have seen my mentors and people who've been wildly more successful than me use consistency in their favor and use it to leverage their businesses and their professional worlds and their personal worlds as well over time. And I know because of how I've used consistency in my business, in my personal life, to be able to get what I need out of every single day in order to feel like I'm thriving versus surviving, and in order to leverage skills as I grow and evolve. So I'm going to dig into examples of all of this. I'm excited to do this episode. I really sometimes when I start putting notes together for these episodes, I just get real geeky and real excited. And this was one of those episodes. So I hope you love listening as much as I loved creating this content for today. So when I started thinking about this episode, I was like, okay, I want to use some really specific examples. So I started doing some number crunching on things because I was like, these numbers they'll be a good demonstration of what I'm trying to show here. So I wanted to think of an example of something where I've been really consistent over time that's been pretty boring, pretty unsexy, but it's had big payoff. And so I started thinking about exercise. And, there's not a lot that's more boring than that, right? So just general working out. Now, if you're someone who loves to work out on a regular basis, then you're like, oh, this sounds great. But if you're not a workout person, you're like, I don't even want to know. So listen, hear me out though. So I did not grow up exercising at all. If you've been listening to my show for a long time, if you know much about me, I always joke I was a macaroni and cheese kid, like ate horrible food growing up, never exercised. PE was the bane of my existence. But ironically, I became a personal trainer in my mid-20s as my second career, which was kind of funny how it all came together. So exercise was obviously a big part of my life then, but I actually started exercising in between my a little bit in my senior year in high school and then going into college. Started exercising really consistently, and full transparency, this was 100% because I wanted to shrink my body. I wanted to lose weight. I was like all about counting my calories and burning calories, doing cardio and everything that most women and girls did back in 1990, whatever. So I started working out really consistently during that time, and I just never stopped. And it's brought so much into my life. It's brought so much into my life physically in terms of, supporting my general physical health, but it's really, really supported my mental health over the years. And that's really been like the bigger payoff that I wasn't looking for when I first started exercising. So when I started thinking about this in terms of using this example of exercise, it's not super exciting. It's not a real fun, sexy thing, but it's something that has really big payoffs over time. I was like, okay, I want to crunch the numbers. So if I've worked out 6 days a week-ish every year for the last 27 years, that means that I have done approximately 776 workouts. Or sorry, 7,776 workouts. So in 27 years, 7,776 workouts. The impact of that in terms of what it's done for my physical and mental health, I am sure that it's added years onto my life down the road, that I will live longer because of that my heart is healthier because of that. There's actually some like weird things that have come up with my health recently where they're like, oh, interesting. Like you have this little thing that seems to be genetic, but because you're in such great health, it's like not a concern at all, which is great. I'm so grateful that I've been working out as much as I have over the years so that little things like that, as they show up, they're not hugely compromising. What I look at in terms of, and what I can see in terms of compounding interest, which we're going to talk about in a moment, is how consistency in exercise has supported me in other ways. So we're going to talk about today in this episode how consistency creates compounding interest. We're going to talk about how consistency creates scaffolding, which helps in a huge way with decision fatigue and mental load. We're going to talk about how consistency impacts your identity. And then we're going to talk about how consistency impacts you as a leader. So we're going to get into a few different components here, and whether or not you relate to my example of exercise, this is going to be relatable to you in some way. And it doesn't matter if you've been doing something 7,776 times for the last 27 years, or if you start doing something today. It's where you build from here that matters. And you can start anything today. Today can be day one. Like the only day one that's better than yesterday is today, right? So if you didn't start 27 years ago, you know what your second best option is? Today. So whatever the routine or habit might be. So when I look at the consistency of exercise in my life and what that's done for me is it's really shown me how having one thing where I don't have any negotiation in my brain can impact how I bring other new habits into my life and minimize negotiation with myself for things that feel either challenging, hard, uncomfortable, super boring, undesirable, how I can get things built into a routine because I know that the long-term payoff will be worth it. And so having that background of doing that with exercise has been a way that I've proven that to myself. And so it's motivating to me to be like, okay, I know what the payoff can be. Now, if you don't have something like that, if you don't have consistency in some aspect of your life where you're like, yeah, I've seen the benefit. Again, it's okay because you can start now. And it only takes a little bit of consistency, doing something a handful of times to start feeling the benefit of that consistency for you to then start leveraging like, okay, now I have this proof in terms of what consistency in this area can mean to my life moving forward. So I've done this with working out, but I've also done it with podcasting. So with podcasting, I don't know anyone. There are people who have done this for sure, but I just don't know of anyone. And I know a lot of podcasters who have the same amount of podcast consistency that I have. So with podcasting, I started podcasting in March of 2016. That was 9 years ago. I haven't missed a single week since then. Every single week since March of 2016, we have released either 1 or 2 episodes of the podcast, depending on our production. Actually, sometimes 3 episodes a week. So 1 to 3 episodes a week of a podcast every single week since March of 2016. That's 941 episodes. There's actually a few more than that. We've done some bonus stuff in there too, but 941 episodes that have been released over the last 9 years. So consistency in that area, what has that done? Well, it's catapulted my career in all sorts of different ways. It's grounded my expertise and my credibility in public speaking, in thought leadership, in coaching, in all sorts of different ways that have been invaluable to my business in terms of being able to, generate revenue that impacts my family, in terms of, being able to take my business to the next level. And then also in terms of being able to have the impact that I want to have. And in order to get the invitations to do the kind of work I really want to be doing. So that's been an invaluable experience as a result of this consistency. Now, just like with working out, with podcasting, there's plenty of times where I'm like, don't really feel like it today, but I just show up and do it. Sometimes it's great. There's times when I'm working out or podcasting or doing something else related to a habit that I've integrated consistently into my life. And there's times where it's like, oh, this is amazing, love it. But more often than not, it's just showing up and doing well enough or good enough. It's not about every time you show up to do the thing when you're looking at a consistent routine. It's not about being the best every time. It's just about like checking the box. And so showing up, getting it done in like an average-ish way. And what happens over time is that you get better and better. Like your workouts get stronger and stronger. So your average, there's an upward trend of what your average is. My podcasting got better and better over time. So what was an average episode 9 years ago is very different than what's an average episode now. My ability to come and speak on a topic, my ability to pull in examples, my ability to speak fluidly, my ability to use storytelling. So these skills, your average shifts over time as you do the thing more often. So you can show up and give an average effort and it's still going to be way more than someone else's brand new effort. So that consistency really pays off in that way. That's also the benefit of the compounding interest. So let's talk about this piece. Consistency creates compounding interest. So this means tiny gains over time. And this is where we often get lost because we're like, well, if I don't do that thing today, no big deal. No one's going to know. It's not going to change anything. So we forget about that tiny bit of compounding interest that matters every single time. Like every single time we're putting a few pennies in the bank, every time you put those few pennies in the bank makes a big difference 27 years down the road, right? So thinking about what are the things that you're doing that you could just as easily opt out of on any given day, but because you don't opt out of them, they now either have had this big impact on you or moving forward, if you continue to show up and not opt out, can have a big impact on your life. Another area where I've done this is giving compliments. So telling people either ways that I'm grateful for them or telling people things that I see in them to say like, oh, I love it how you do this, or you're always really great at that, or I really appreciate the way you show up with this. What I found in consistently giving compliments is it's been a bridge to relationship building. It's been a really beautiful way for people to see themselves through my eyes, which has helped people feel more powerful in certain ways. It's helped people feel more certain about themselves in certain ways. It's helped my clients in a lot of different ways in terms of helping them be able to gain confidence in a certain arena in their either in their businesses, if they're building businesses, or in their professional lives, if they're in a more traditional corporate space. But it's also helped in terms of being able to have a vulnerable relationship with a person in a personal realm, to be able to say, I really love the way you do this, or I really appreciate how you did that, or I really, I really love your skirt, like whatever. When you give a compliment, it's a demonstration of vulnerability. It builds trust. So giving out compliments on a really consistent basis. And this is something I do all the time in public places, in private places. I will literally like see someone in a grocery store and notice their shoes. And then three aisles later, I'll like go track them down and be like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to tell you I love your shoes. These kinds of things, when you're a person who consistently gives out the compliments, you get to have these really great interactions with people. There's so many times when giving someone a compliment has totally changed the course of my day, because I was having kind of a crappy day. But then I told someone I liked their shoes, and all of a sudden this person's smiling, we're having a random conversation about something, and now all of a sudden my day feels a million times better. That person also gets the benefit of it, right? So that's another example of something really simple. Another example of things I do really consistently, I put everything on my calendar right away. Again, not sexy, not exciting, super boring, but I don't, and I'm going to like knock on wood when I say this, I don't miss events, appointments. I don't miss things. This is also because I have ADHD and I have to do this or things just really get lost in my head. So putting everything on my calendar right away. So when I catch myself like, oh, I'm going to put that on my calendar in a minute, I'm going to do it later tonight, like, and I'm giving myself a reminder. I'm like, no. I'm a person who puts it on my calendar right away. The benefit of that is that I show up for the things I say I'm going to show up for. I don't miss things. I don't no-show for things. If I can't make something and I need to change a plan, I can give people notice. So that builds trust, right? Another thing that I do that's really consistent is every week I create a list of action items, and I'll show you my trusty notebook, trusty little spiral notebook I have every week. It just sits right next to me on my desk. I'm telling you, if there is a week where I don't do this, I am lost all week long. So of course, there's other ways. I have software that helps me, like, that helps with our project management. And I have an assistant that helps like guiding with things and reminding me of things. But I'm telling you, like, this really boring checklist that does not bring me a ton of joy to create every week has made a huge difference in me being able to meet deadlines, being productive, making sure that I'm better with my prioritization and do the right things first and the less significant things later. So this has been a game changer for me, and I've been doing it for years now. So there's so many different ways that you can think about leveraging consistency and what that can look like moving forward. Another thing that I am really consistent with is saying the thing that needs to be said, even if it's uncomfortable. So even if it's uncomfortable for me, even if it's uncomfortable for the room. One of the things that I know about having these habits where I'm really consistent is that when I'm in a situation and a decision needs to be made, I can quickly think, hold on, who am I in this moment? Am I a person who says the thing that's uncomfortable? Am I a person who gets up and works out every day? Am I a person who makes a podcast or two every week? Am I a person who gives a compliment to strangers? Am I a person who puts things on like, it's part of my identity. So I can remind myself in those moments, am I a person that does this? And it takes that negotiation out of like, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? No, it's just like, I'm going to do it because I'm a person who does these things. It's part of who I am. And that self-identification goes a really long way in terms of reducing mental load. So we have this concept here where we're gaining compound interest over time, that we're getting, like, again, just putting a few pennies in every day. The bank account's growing and growing and growing, and whatever that habit is or whatever that skill is that you're practicing consistently over time. We don't have to make it perfect. So the pressure's off. If I'm doing it all the time, pressure's off. If like I'm only going to do something one time, I want it to be amazing, right? If I'm going to do it every day, do it pretty good. Do it pretty well. Call it good. Check the box. So it takes the pressure off of always having to get something just right. And it puts the onus more on just get it done. You can edit tomorrow, fix it tomorrow, make it better tomorrow. I got some of this compounding interest idea from the work of Atomic Habits, a book by James Clear, which is a phenomenal book. I've read it. I've listened to the audio. And then John Acuff is another person who I've followed for a long time who does a great job talking about habits. And he has a book called Finish and another book called Soundtracks. So Finish is really about like, how do you go from being a person who starts things to being a person who finishes things? And how do you have that be the thing that's consistent about you as being a finisher? And then Soundtracks is, what are the soundtracks in your head? What's your self-talk around finishing things and around being a person who does things a certain way and is consistent in life? So those are two tips or two books, and I'll put those in the show notes, that I would highly recommend. They're both great on Audible. All the books, both of these authors read their own books. They're great on Audible, great hard copy, whichever way you want to go there. The next thing I want to dig into is consistency creating scaffolding. So consistency creating scaffolding allows for you to have defaults that you can fall back on so that you take out the element of negotiation and decision making. So when I get up in the morning, I'm not thinking, am I going to work out today? No, because I just do it. Every day is a workout day. And some days it's 10 minutes. Some days it's an hour. Some days it's like stretching and like a few push-ups. And other days it's like, get on the Peloton and then like do a leg workout. Like, I mean, it's just varies wildly, but I'm not thinking, am I going to do it or not do it? I'm going to do it. And so I don't have that internal negotiation. I'm not thinking and going through these mental gymnastics, which take a toll over time. So that is huge. That ability to remove negotiation. When I was a personal trainer, I had clients who would just like beg and plead for 6 a.m. slots because they knew that if they came and worked out with me at 6 a.m., that they weren't going to cancel. But they knew if they would wait till if they got the 5 p.m. slots, so the after work slots, like they were way more tempted to cancel. So when it was a 6 a.m. appointment, they were like, I roll out of bed, I just show up, I don't even have time to think about it. If I have all day to think about it, I'm way more likely to find an excuse. I'm way more likely to let something else get in the way. So I loved my 6 a.m. clients because they were so consistent. They were always there. They were also the people that like always paid on time. They were just like the easiest because they had that consistency so locked in and they knew the benefits of it. That takes so much off your mental load. There's other examples of this, like when you look at like wardrobe or meal planning, where you're like, I'm a person who eats the same thing for breakfast every day, which I am. Or I'm a person that like has, I've become this person. I get like, find a shirt I like and get it in 3 colors. And then I'm just rotating the colors all the time. So minimizing decisions in being consistent in certain ways. Oh my gosh. I feel like, especially as you're aging, just is so helpful. The other thing that's really beneficial with this scaffolding for me specifically is how it impacts my ADHD. It really, really helps me. It really helps me have systems and structure in place so that when my ADHD brain gets a little wild, I have something to return to that's really grounding, where I have like automatic defaults where I'm like, oh, this is what I do right now. Instead of, oh my gosh, did I do this or this? I don't know. What's better? Let me make lists of pros and cons. So I just have defaults to return to that keep me really grounded. Now, if you don't have ADHD, but you are a woman in midlife and maybe in perimenopause, this scaffolding is also really helpful because when we're in perimenopause, we also have a hard time with decision making and brain fog, and mental load feels very overwhelming, and decision making and prioritization can feel very challenging. So this scaffolding can be really helpful in all sorts of ways. It can be helpful in motherhood, seasons of motherhood, especially seasons of intense motherhood. So kind of regardless of where you're at, my guess is the scaffolding that consistency creates for you will be beneficial in one way or another, regardless of whether or not you are like me and perimenopausal with ADHD. So lucky, right? So then how does consistency impact your identity? So I talked about when you are consistent in doing the things that you say you're going to do, what does that do for your identity? You start to see yourself as a person who gets things done. You see yourself as a person who finishes the things that they start. You see yourself as a person who shows up when they say they're going to show up. When you see yourself that way, you trust yourself more. When you see yourself that way, you know that you have the ability to make the right decisions when push comes to shove. You know you have the ability to show up imperfectly and keep going. This goes a really long way in terms of being able to trust yourself in new environments, trust yourself to be adaptable, trust yourself to try new things, trust yourself to, show up and be supportive of other people, trust yourself to be good in your professional role, trust yourself to be good in your personal relationships. So being able to trust yourself is another component that is so significant when it comes to consistency. And the way that it helps you develop that self-trust is paramount. And then the last thing is, how does consistency impact your leadership? So when you are a person who is known for being consistent, first of all, it impacts how you see yourself as a leader, right? Because you're like, I'm a person who gets things done. I'm a person who follows through. But how does it impact the people who see you that way? So the people who see you as like, yeah, Sarah's someone who gets things done. Sarah's someone who has great follow through. Sarah is someone who, if she's going to start it, she's going to figure out a way to finish it. This builds so much trust and credibility over time, which allows for psychological safety in your professional relationships. People feel safe with you because you honor your commitments, because you are who you say you are, because you do what you say you're going to do. And this allows for building loyalty so that if there is a mistake, if there's something messy or, total flop or failure, that those people, you have established trust with them over time. So they're like, don't even worry about it. Like, no worries if something went sideways. I know you're a person that will figure it out. I know you're a person who's going to, do better tomorrow. So it allows for you to have instances of failure or messiness. And people are like, I know who you are. And this one moment is not going to define you. Let's try it again tomorrow. So those moments don't become a big thing. And lastly, consistency impacts your leadership because consistency is a form of visibility. So we've talked on a recent episode about visibility of avoidance. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe episode 939. So when we talk about consistency as a form of visibility, consistency is you showing up for yourself and other people over and over and over again, right? So you're saying repeatedly, like, I'm here, I'm staying here, I'm not going anywhere. This is part of your leadership brand. This is brand building, brand development. That goes a long way in establishing yourself as a leader, especially if you are a leader in places where there are people who carry marginalized identities, where there are people who are underrepresented, underestimated, commonly excluded. That consistency makes a really big difference. So whether you are a part of a community of where people are being marginalized, or you are in places where other people are marginalized, that allows you to build trust for the people who maybe are carrying marginalized identities, and for you to be like, hey, I'm a person who shows up over and over and over again. You can count on me. Or if you're in the position of carrying that marginalized identity, you're like, hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I know that sometimes these places aren't safe for me, or that these places aren't appropriate for me, but I'm here. I'm going to show up in these ways. You can count on me. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a person who speaks up. I mean, I feel like for me at times, I'm like, I'm here. I'm the squeaky wheel. You can count on me to continue to be here and continue to be the squeaky wheel. I know it makes the rest of you uncomfortable. Not my problem. I don't say it like that. So that impact on your leadership goes a really, really long way. So my assignment for you, my invitation for you is, where and how can you build in consistency in some small way and start measuring and noticing the impact? So is it maybe in like sending a text to one person a day to be like, hey, I just want you to know I appreciate you? Is it getting in 10 minutes of movement a day? Is it doing something with your wardrobe to like make getting dressed in the morning easier every day, if that's something that sends you into a spiral of mental gymnastics? Is it something related to something that you do for your team, creating some sort of ritual that you all can do repeatedly over time? Is it in a personal relationship, something that you can build consistency in? Maybe it's a date night, maybe it's a girls' night. Where can you build a consistent habit and be committed in order to say that I'm a person who does this thing, and then be the person who does that thing, even if you're just doing it again in an average-ish way, and then noticing the outcomes and the benefits as you're doing it, and notice, how does it impact your identity and how does it impact your leadership? And what are the benefits of the compounding interest? And where's the mental freedom that comes from having that scaffolding in place? So I hope this was helpful. Please share this episode. I can't wait to be back with you next week. And in the meantime, remember that I'm in this with you always. Thank you for allowing me to spend time in your ear today. If you liked this episode, be sure to subscribe to this channel. To learn more about my speaking, training, and coaching services, visit sarahdean.com. That's SARADEAN. I would also love for you to connect with me on LinkedIn at sarahdean.com/LinkedIn, or on Instagram at sarahdeanspeaks. I love hearing from my listeners. Thank you for showing up for yourself today. I see you, I hear you, and I'm holding space for you today and every single day.